Welcome back to the Crab Clown Podcast. This month's episode is going to be very special. Joining me today is my good friend, Tyler Tong. He is a college professor, an entrepreneur, a business coach, among other things. And he, like me, relies heavily on the Enneagram in his line of work. In today's episode, Tyler and I will be walking through the 9 Enneagram types, and we'll be sharing some anecdotes about some of our friends and some of our colleagues that we've encountered at work and throughout life who embody these personality types. Now, one thing you should know before starting listening on this podcast is that Tyler and I are not certified Enneagram coaches. We are consumers and readers and those who appreciate using the tool to identify the personality types of others so that we can relate a lot better to them. If you're new to the Enneagram, check out the resources in the description box below to acclimate and to orient yourself to how this tool can help you get to know others better and put into words some of the personality types that may be a little bit more frustrating to you. Sit back and enjoy this conversation, part 1 of the Enneagram. Let's do this! Stand with me!
Welcome to the Crab Clown Podcast. Crab Clown Jimmy is a YouTube personality specializing in cinematic gameplay adventures in survival games such as Grounded, ARK, and 7 Days to Die. The Crab Clown Podcast, while an associated production, will vary a bit in purpose, with common themes centering around education and entertainment. Sit back and enjoy the conversation.
Well, welcome to today's podcast. I am your host, Crab Clown Jimmy, and today I am joined by a friend and special guest, Mr. Tyler Tong. He is an entrepreneur, business owner, and college professor. Tyler, before we jump into the topic of the Enneagram today, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do for a living, what you do on the side, and a little bit about how the Enneagram has impacted any or all of those things.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for having me on today. I teach a couple college classes, mostly in the business realm of things. I'm the CFO for a management holding company based out of Minnesota. That we've got 3 companies right now. But then on the side, my real big passion is my company, Epic Arches, which is business services, fractional CFO, business coaching, really trying to help people achieve their dreams and make their dreams become a reality. And I think the Enneagram is a huge part of self-growth and understanding how that works and the areas that they need help and assistance to make their dreams come to life.
I love that. And as we get started on the topic of the Enneagram, I want to invite you to share some of the cases, as much as you are able, with respects to the persons who do coaching under your supervision, how Enneagram has impacted their personal development in the realm of coaching and in business coaching, and just your experience serving students. I want to hear more about that. Let's first set the playing field a little bit. So for any viewer or any listener who has never heard of the Enneagram, it is a personality typing system. And Tyler, jump in and correct me where I'm wrong or where I'm not super clear. So the Enneagram is a personality typing system where personalities are categorized into 9 distinct types. Those types can be broken down into triads to understand them with more depths. But what's true is that if you are a type 1 in a room full of type 1s, that you still have a room full of different people. Am I accurate here?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So in your own words, what is the Enneagram?
Yeah, I think the most basic answer, I'd say the Enneagram is a personality typing tool, similar to Myers-Briggs, DISC, that type of thing. The difference for me, the key difference, is that it's really not so measuring how we act or what we do, but the motivation behind what we're doing, why we react to a certain way, why do we act a certain way. One of the anecdotes I like to use talking about this is there's 9 different types, and we could have 9 different people in a room, and they're all going to react the exact same way, but the motivation is what sets them apart. And why did they do that is different for all 9 of those people, even if they reacted the exact same way. And that to me is kind of what sets the Enneagram apart, more so than Myers-Briggs, DISC. They're all great and have their place, but I think this is just a different lens to look at that through.
I think that's wisely said. So we know DISC to be another personality typing test, and a lot of workplaces require folks, and you and I have been through this in a multitude of capacities, where DISC sort of boils you down into a task-oriented person or a relationships-oriented person or a secrecy-oriented person and so forth. And Myers-Briggs does subdivide a little bit more than that with the 4 levels of Myers-Briggs, and again, introverted, extroverted, judgment, thinking, and so forth. All of these are great tools. It is my professional opinion that the Enneagram perhaps has the most recent research, has taken businesses and churches and others who work on teams or in groups of people, has taken them by storm because it brings to reality, to your earlier point, those motivations. And I like to say it this way. I taught a class on it, and I've used this language, which was helpful for me. A person's Enneagram is something of their true north. They don't always go in that direction, but their head is always turned that way.
Yeah.
And so that brings me back around to, if you have a room full of personality type 3s, and we're going to talk about the different personality types here in a second, but if you have a room full of type 3s, and that room is full of people of different genders and different generations and different upbringings or belief systems, they're all going to be different people, but they are all motivated, to use your word from earlier, by the same thing. And for the number 3, the type 3, that is being an achiever or someone who is very, very successful. So let's quickly name all 9 types. And then I want to share a couple of stories about some of the people who are in these types, and then we'll spell them out a little bit more. So the 9 types are: type number 1, the reformer; type number 2, the helper; number 3, we've just mentioned, the achiever; type number 4, the individualist; type number 5, the investigator; 6, the loyalist; type 7, the enthusiast; type 8, the challenger; and type 9, the peacemaker. Now, if the Enneagram is new to you, I'm going to drop a link in the description box below so that you could actually take the test and see where you fall as Tyler and I are having this conversation. And if you are listening on a non-YouTube platform, the website that you go to is enneagraminstitute.com, and there's a red Take the Test button, and that is a really helpful test to help you acclimate to this and do a little bit of extra reading on what Tyler and I are talking about. Tyler, do you want to tell us about type 1s, the reformer? Who are they? Do you know someone like that?
I would love to. So the reformer, I'm going to use the definitions from the Enneagram Institute just kind of as our base as we talk through this. Good. But the reformer is the rational, idealistic type. They're principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and perfectionistic. I definitely have a type 1 in my life, and it is... What I find interesting about type 1s is that they are very much, there is a right way to do it.
It is black and white for them.
Everything is black and white. Yep. There's a right way to do things. But what's interesting is their personal upbringing, history, experience, stories, all of that forms what they think is black and white. And so not every type 1 thinks the same way.
Sure.
And so it's very much, I have this set of rules, and this is the right way to do this, the right way to act, the right way to be, the right way whatever. But that doesn't always align with other people. Often it doesn't, actually.
Sure.
It adds for some interesting interactions.
It does. Our type 1s, our perfectionists, are very strong-willed.
Yeah.
And they're great to have on a team. I've worked with several 1s in my life, and I don't have any 1s in my immediate family, but I've worked with several. I'm friends with several, and they have a unique gift. In the context of work, I would assume the same would be true in the context of family, but especially in the context of work, they have a knack for walking into a room and immediately notice what's wrong.
Yeah.
They can go in there and they can say, well, there's not enough chairs for the number of people who are going to come in, because their brain fires off that quickly. When they fall asleep at night, they are capable of counting and measuring and preparing the things that they know are right and true. And to your earlier point, they sometimes do this to a fault. They will sometimes moralize those preferences, because everything does fall into a this camp or a that camp, and that can make them difficult personalities. Your wiser 1s know that they are like this, and they know to buffer that a little bit with grace and gentleness in terms of conversations with other people. But those strong personality types, if you are a sensitive type, they can be somewhat abrasive.
Yeah, it can be hard to work with those people if you don't recognize that that's where they're coming from, right? And you and I both worked with people that have been like that and been at events where we have walked in and been like, hey, this looks great. And somebody goes, to your exact story, there are not enough chairs in here. Right. And we were both like, yeah, it's fine.
There's probably enough chairs in here. There's probably enough.
Like, we counted the seats and they're like, no, but if you think about the spacing and people aren't going to sit next to each other and all of this stuff, it became I think in the instance I'm thinking of, they were right. Like, we knew, oh yeah, that's actually a great point. But I think you and I both had enough experience to know this is where they were coming from. This is how we need to take that. It's not a moral thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction here as well, because they were right. We were not wrong.
Right.
Right. So like, there were probably enough. We were probably right.
Yeah.
There needed to be more. They were definitely right, but it mattered to them. So to us, using the chair analogy, and you and I are thinking of a story because for our listeners, Tyler and I did used to work together in another context. We ran a lot of events together. And so we're thinking of some, quietly funny context, and we're trying to protect our friends because we love them. But in this context, the absence of chairs didn't matter because Tyler and I both knew that if we didn't have enough chairs, it'd be fine because there were more chairs right over there.
And we'd fix it.
We'd fix it. But this guy, he knew better.
Yeah.
And why would you not fix it now? Because there are more chairs over there, and he rightfully knew more people were coming. But that's just the difference.
Yeah.
Now, we could have bickered and fought about that, or we could have known each other's personality types and been sensitive to the reality of it matters a lot to him. And because we love him and we have respect for him, let's go move some more chairs for this guy.
And at the very least, hear him out.
Of course.
Know, why do you think that this is wrong? What do you really think the issue is here?
Sure.
And get down to it.
Well said, well said. Let's talk about our number twos. Now, this is an important one. I'm going to take the liberty of describing this one, and then I'm going to let you offer some rebuttal because, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a type 2, yes?
Oh, I'm a very strong 2. Yeah.
A very strong 2. I love to hear that. So type 2s, you ready, are warm, caring, and giving. They are motivated by a need to be loved and needed and to avoid acknowledging their own needs. Now, it's great to have folks like you, and I'm just going to jump right in and let you let you collect words for a second. Type 2s are another great person to have on a team. Type 2s are great to have in a marriage relationship. These are people who care for others so much that their identity is wrapped up in what they can do for others. In the absence of doing for others, their own identity becomes somewhat blurry. How am I doing so far?
No, you're hitting the nail on the head.
Okay. How does this pan out in the life of a 30-something-year-old man as being a type 2? What is this like?
Me realizing that I'm a type 2 was super hard. There's a book out there called The Road Back to You that talks about all of these types in depth and all sorts of things that we're going to talk about in a little bit. We're getting to, but the way that I realized I was a type 2 is I read that chapter 3 times back to back and cried every time for a different reason because at first I was like, I'm a horrible human being.
Oh no!
Like just the way that it was worded was very much like did not paint me in a very good light.
Sure.
Because it can seem manipulative and realizing like, oh, I thought I was doing something because I loved my friend. But in reality, I was doing it because I wanted them to love me.
Yeah.
And then read it again and was like, wow, I feel so understood. And then read it again and was like, oh, there's hope. I don't have to sit in this. And I'm not just stuck in this unhealthy manipulation, even like pseudo subconscious of, I think I'm doing this because like I care about my friends or my family or whoever. There's definitely some realization that I wasn't as innocent.
Or authentic.
Yeah.
I hear the cry of 2s being there because the need to be needed is such a prevalent North Star for them.
Yep.
That they will go out of their way to find ways to serve others, even at times when others don't want to be served.
Oh, yeah.
And when that boundary has been set from folks, and especially like this comes to play a lot, and I used the example earlier, marital relationships. When in-laws are trying to love their kids, or when kids are trying to show love to their adult parents, or even in the workplace, someone will leave their desk to go stand in the doorway of someone else. Like, can I help you with something, even at the expense of getting their own work done? So that they can feel needed, and that's just their North Star. Now, there's a healthy way to handle that, and you've acclimated to some of this in the workplace. I mean, as a business owner, as someone who coaches people into success, it has to start with humility and self-awareness. And you spoke earlier about the book, The Road Back to You by Cron and Stabile. That's a book that I have in my hand right now. I was just reading from it into the microphone, and I'm going to cite it in our sources in the bottom of this video. A great book to read for anyone interested in the Enneagram. But what are some of the steps you've taken, Tyler, as a type 2 to achieve and to maintain health in your adult life, especially in the workplace?
Yeah, I think it really started with like understanding my type. And I know we're going to talk about growth and stress and all that in a little bit, but to preview that a little bit, that is what has really helped me. Is I think the Enneagram overall is super helpful for us to become the best version of ourselves as a whole person. And so whether that's mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever combination of that you want to define that as, for me, it has really been a tool to say, hey, this is how I'm being healthy, or like to be self-aware enough to go, this is not healthy. Like I need to do some of the hard inner work to like get back to my true north.
Right. And for you, when serving others, you have to first run through a short gamut of questions, I would assume. Is this for me or is this for them?
Yeah. Some of my best friends just had a baby 2 weeks ago. There were conversations leading up to them having a baby of, my phone is on 24/7. Call me when you need me.
Right.
Because there's some family dynamics at play where we weren't sure who was watching their other kid and like who wanted to be at the hospital and all of that kind of stuff. And so I said, if you need me, like I will show up and like stay at the house, all that stuff.
The words of a proper two.
Right, exactly. And I had to have like some internal conversations with myself because that call didn't come when I thought it would come. They didn't need me in that way, which is awesome. Like they have a great family and a great support system. Didn't need me in that way. But then I had to ask myself, okay, what can I do that is loving and not manipulative?
Right.
To still step in the situation.
Protect yourself from being hurt because you weren't called upon.
Right.
That's something that you have to balance internally, I would imagine.
And so I went through this kind of rubric in my head of, okay, where is this coming from? What do I want to do? How can I help?
Right.
Is this because I just want to love my friends, or is it because I want them to need me, or what is the actual motivation here?
Good question.
And is it truly pure?
And that is the cry of, we've said this already, but that's the cry of twos. They have to think that because like in addition to needing to be needed, and that's such a crude way to say it, but it does, I think, clarify, right?
Yep.
But there's also, you want to be seen as serving. You want to be seen as someone who loves others and serves others. And the risk here for twos is they will do that at the expense of self so much to their detriment.
Yeah.
They will pour out of an empty cup to try to pour into another cup that is empty. And what's true is that exhausted people don't serve other people very well. And twos are often the first people to find that out. And I want us to explore some of that growth-stress dichotomy, and we will for the types here in just a second. But let's first pivot over to threes, the achiever. Now, in my experience, Tyler, threes are the most common type of person, especially in the workplace. Let me say it that way.
Yeah.
When I go to work and I start talking about the Enneagram and I start having my team members like take the test, we do this all in the name of getting to know each other, to talk to them in a language they can understand. Some people want to be heard. Some people respond well to action, and the types help us clarify that very, very quickly. Yeah. It can be enchanting, the Enneagram, if we're not careful. It can be something that enchants us, that makes us want to dig in and really lean on it sort of mindlessly. And we have to be careful there. It's a tool. It's a very, very helpful tool in the realm of the classroom, of course, work. And I would dare say, especially in marriage. It's helped me a lot because Mrs. Krabs is a type 3 from top to bottom. That is where she starts and ends. And mine, when she and I get into squabbles or arguments or disagreements, it very often lands in the realm of values, because the achiever, and I'll read another line here from Cron and Stabile's book. The performer, or the achiever, is a success-oriented, image-conscious, and wired for productivity person. They are motivated by a need to be, or appear to be, successful, and they avoid failure at all costs.
This is often, in my experience, some of the workaholics side of things.
Right.
I will work 60, 80 hours a week so that people think that I am successful, that I am needed at my job and an integral part. The success of my team, of my organization,
right,
of whoever it is. It's different than the two. In workaholics that are twos are much more of the, I need them to need me.
Yes.
To know that they're valued as part of the team. Mm-hmm. Threes are, no, I need them to know that I'm the one who's making this work.
I'm the one who's successful.
I'm the one who's successful.
It's successful because of me.
Yep, exactly. But it's all about excellence being viewed as knowledgeable, successful.
And achievers are great to have on teams, Tyler. And you and I have worked together with several.
Yeah.
I could, on the team that you and I worked with, I think threes were the majority
Definitely the most
number
common.
of people, right?
Yeah.
Men and women, and even across generations. Now, as millennials, our generation was defined by a lot of things, and all generations have, half a dozen or more denominations that people identify them by. And for millennials, we were the folks who always got a trophy, win, pass, or fail, right? We always got a trophy, but we also went into the workforce wanting to make an impact. And we were the first generation to feel the sting of the waning benefits of a college degree.
Yes.
So a lot of us were graduating college in 03, 04, 05 and following. And that's when a lot of jobs weren't happening for a lot of people.
Yep.
And so our type 3 people, especially for millennials, they have a unique baggage they carry that includes not wanting to be seen as a failure, or specifically they want to be seen as someone, to your earlier point, who's integral. And again, we love them because they achieve so much, but sometimes, we ready for the negative side, sometimes they do that by cutting corners. Because success has to be had, and even
at any cost, often to self and health. Yep.
Your type 3s, your achievers, are the people who take work on vacation. They are the people who are checking emails at dinner. They are the folks who will even glance at their phone for work messages, like during church or during family meetings or other things like that.
Yep.
Successful, reliable, helpful. But for them, the largest challenge is striking that balance with self needs, identifying and maintaining those needs, and getting the work done at home. Because when a type 3 feels failure, if they actually experience failure, and we all do, right? It's harder for threes. Sure. It's certainly harder for threes to feel that failure because for them, it shapes their identity. To fail brings on huge shame.
Yeah.
And so their response to that shame, type 3s, is to withdraw.
Yep.
If I can't be successful at everything, I will choose to.
I am nothing.
I will be successful at nothing, and I am nothing. Well said.
Yeah.
And so they will be tempted to hide. They will be tempted to pull away from others and that accountability. And then they dig their way out and they start rebuilding because they can't stay there for too terribly long. Was this your experience with threes? Do you have someone in mind when we talk about threes?
Yeah, I do. One of my best friends is a 3, and his job right now is in a marketing sales position, and there are many times where he will have to have a conversation with big clients. Like he's talking to Intuit, American Eagle, EA Sports, big conversations. And there are many times where we have anxiety-ridden conversations the night before a sales pitch or a big meeting, because he's going, I've done this 25 times and I just need you to tell me that it's good. Because I have this thing tomorrow. I just need to go through my 8 slides. Out of 30 slides that are being presented, he's got 6 to 10 of them. And he's like, I just need to go over this with somebody else. I've gone over it with 3 other people already. And I need somebody else to just tell me that it's good. Which is fun. And I, as a 2, enjoy that I can be that person for my friend.
Of course. Right. You're serving him by listening.
I'm serving him by listening. Yeah, by participating in that. But it's an interesting dynamic seeing him in those situations because he is normally so even-keeled and lighthearted and funny. and then something like this pops up where the spotlight is on him to perform.
Yeah.
And there's theoretically a $2 million contract on the line that he has a part of in winning or losing. And it just it cranks up that pressure.
It does. Losing it would sting heavily. Earning it would really feed that ego and scratch the itch, I would say.
Definitely scratch the itch.
Because that is a way that they see themselves as alive and helpful and thriving by the measures of their success. I am married, so you could say my best friend is also a 3. I am married to a type 3. And I am not a type 3, and we'll go into my type in a little bit, but like she works in student life at the university we work for, and she oversees a lot. She oversees international students, she oversees events, she oversees discipline, she oversees student leaders, she oversees a whole lot of other things that fall into smaller categories but take up large chunks of time. And what inevitably stings for her the most is if there is a keystroke error in the database and our international student doesn't get their visa as fast as they thought it would, she carries that type of burden because that's a small to them but significant to her type failure that just stings and requires her to overcome some of those spaces. And what she'll do, as I imagine your friend will, is that they will point at that tiny failure. Or that freak accident failure, or that one thing that's out of their control type of mistake. We'll call it a mistake. They'll call it a failure. You get the difference, right? And they will completely absolve themselves of the history of successes because this one thing happened, and that one thing becomes equally as big as those huge successes. And that's natural to them. This is not a way to put them down. That is just a natural way for them to see successes and failures. And one of the best things I can do for my wife to love her, to encourage her, is to shed a light on all the things she did well. And she does a lot of things well. And I love getting to showcase those things she does well. In fact, if I weren't married to her, I would be a much less of a man just because she has really brought the best out of me and has been intentional about that. But in moments where she fails, or sometimes even when she does something that disappoints me and I fail to use gentle language in that, I'm a neat freak. She is not a neat freak. That's one of those issues that comes up for us. And what's true is that, she'll make a mess or what I think is a mess, and I'll comment on it, and she will become exasperated because she will say, you often comment on all the messes I make and you never address all the things I've cleaned, which is a very, very potently rich and true statement. And that has been helpful to me to recognize if I'm going to love her well, I can call her pretty. Doesn't matter as much. I can bring her flowers. Doesn't matter as much. I can clean the house. Doesn't matter as much because she knows I'm doing it for me and not for her. But when I appreciate how she thinks and executes ideas, that's flirting with her because that's what feels successful to her. And that has been something I have learned way too late in marriage. and thankfully she's been with me long enough to give me time to learn it because I'm a slow learner, but it has been tremendously helpful. But that is our type 3. That is the achiever. That is a person who is success oriented. But we do need to pivot to type 4. Now, what do you know about type 4s, Tyler?
Type 4s are super interesting to me, actually. But they are the sensitive, withdrawn type, expressive, dynamic, self-absorbed, temperamental. We call type 4s the individualist, mostly because they are the ones who do not want to be identified as part of a group, part of any organization. They want to fit in their own box. Nobody can know them like they know themselves. And they often are the ones who have the hardest time with things like the Enneagram because it feels like they're being put in a box. Somebody's trying to define them. Well
said. And I wanted you to put it into words first, and you did that so well because I am a type 4. And you know that, and I know you knew that when I asked you the question. But for me, and I would perhaps risk speaking for all type 4s, coming into the Enneagram was uniquely helpful because the lie that we've bought into when we were young is that no one understands us. Because we make decisions based on how other decisions are made. When I'm, playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends, for example, this is a silly example, but let's keep it lighthearted. When I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends and everyone is rolling up all these other classes, I make it a strategic effort to pick a character type that no one else is using because I want to be different.
Yeah.
Right. I chose to jump both feet into rock and roll and heavy metal because I grew up in the deep South, which was full of country and teeny bop or whatever was true of children when I was growing up. And that's still true today. I am now perfectly identifying as an old rocker. I still do it. I still love it. But that was a part of the reason I made that decision. I wear flat brim hats because everyone else my age wears rounded hats. Like I wear Vans because everyone else my age wears loafers. And like, I'm just choosing to live outside of that stereotype. And that is a key true north for me, a key motivation. But some of the words you said earlier, I think were important. One of the words that Cron uses in his book is that we feel all of our emotions and we have big emotions.
Big emotions. Yeah, I think what I've realized about fours and have come to appreciate is how much you wear your emotions on your sleeve. There's a four that you and I both know who fits the box of nobody can define her. Mm-hmm. We used to work with her and she would almost always wear like black, gray, very neutral colors.
Yep.
And tried to like push the limits on professional dress code.
Right.
But would always have like a pop of some random color somewhere just so that she was like, I'm putting my own spin on this own thing.
Yellow heels. I remember.
Yellow heels, bright blue heels, like all sorts of,
And totally classy. And I know exactly who you're talking about. Dear friend of ours, great worker. And she showcased the Enneagram 4 so well. Yeah. But again,
Big emotions.
With regard, and this is where she and I were alike, is that our big emotions would take shape, especially in the face of authority.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have opinions and we are desperate to be heard, we fours.
Yes.
And depending on who our leader is, if that leader is unwilling to listen to our voice, then we feel unheard. And an unheard four is a scary monster.
Yeah.
Only because their emotions tend to rise, they tend to bubble, and they tend to fester. They go to sleep feeling one thing, they wake up feeling the exact same way.
Yep.
And it perpetuates and goes on. And many fours, at least for me, and let me dial this one back into me and not all fours, but I came into self-awareness later in life. Perhaps in light of being a four, my emotional intelligence always tested very, very low because I would react emotionally to a wide variety of things all the time. If my children were standing in the room with me right now, which for those who watch me on YouTube, those who watch me on live streams would say, what? That's crazy. But what is very, very true is that I am obnoxiously type A about having things clean and orderly and dusted and picked up off the floor. And if my kids were standing here, they would say, that's right, Dad. It's annoying how clean you want us to be. And you get really frustrated and really angry instantly when you see those things. It doesn't bubble up. I walk into a room and see a juice box on the floor and I slap my hands together and say, somebody pick it up. And that's big emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's another four, a very, very close friend of mine who I go see probably 2 or 3 times a year that lives in the DC, Baltimore area. Extremely wild, crazy. You would absolutely love him. Does like insane, just random things all the time. Half the time I'm going, why am I getting a video of this? Right. Like, what is going on?
My man.
But there's specifically one memory I have, like the reason I know that he is a four is because we were driving out to our friend's beach house, 2-lane road, like tiny peninsula of Maryland, going out to the Chesapeake Bay. And we told him to like take a right turn somewhere because something was happening. I don't even remember the exact situation, but we told him to take a right turn and the speed limit changed. And there was like this big truck behind us, like bright lights on, riding us the whole way. And he was going like 10 miles under the speed limit. And we were like, bro, just get over and let this guy pass. And us telling him that, he got extremely upset. Mm-hmm. And then locked in and refused to do anything. Doubled down. Yep. Was like, no, this guy's not passing me. Was getting mad at him because he was riding us. Yep. Was getting mad at us because we were telling him to just like take a breath and pull over and let the guy pass. And it was this whole situation where I was like, I just have to remind myself, I know he's a four because of all of that. That changes like the interactions we have. and the grace I can give him.
Right.
And
we tend to see rules as guidelines. We aren't strict rule followers a lot of the times. When we start talking about growth and stress elements, that's an important thing to reflect on, because in a growth moment, a type 4 like myself will behave like a 1 and start thinking in black and white patterns. But I want to save that for the end. I want us to get through explaining these types, but that's exactly right. If you try to pinhole them into a decision or bully them into a choice, we fight back the hardest. And there's a lot of folks, especially in the realm of YouTube and being a creator here, there's a lot of things that I know that if I changed and did these things, the channel would be in a different stage of health. But what's true is that I don't want to do those things. Like what I want to do is I want to play the game that I'm having the most fun with, and I want to live stream the games that I can be the most animated about. And at the end of the night, I want to go, man, that was fun. Not, man, I needed to do this news release or no one is going to watch me. And I have some friends in the YouTube communities who do work that hard and rightfully reap the rewards of doing game updates and news tutorials and all of these things. They'll stay up all night and watch the sun come up and make good videos because a game that they're playing just released patch notes. And they will go through those patch notes incrementally and do a good job on that. But it's my personality that just rubs against my personality. And they are not wrong and I am not right. But they are in a different place because they chose to rightfully chase that data. And my personality says, no, I don't need the data because I'm eclectic. And for better or for worse, here we are. But let's look at our type 5. This is the investigator. The investigator is a unique person to me. You said that 4s are interesting to you. 5s are interesting to me. They are analytical. They are detached and private. They are motivated by a need to gain knowledge, conserve energy, and avoid relying on others. That's really different to you and I.
Extremely different.
Right.
Extremely different. Their whole thing is really focused on, if I gather enough information, save up enough resources, knowledge, energy, whatever comes my way, I can handle.
I can be self-sufficient with my brain.
With my brain, because I have outsmarted any potential issue, any situation, and I know how to handle whatever's going to come my way.
I see the most 5s on IT teams. And I have seen 2 IT teams and where I just ask the question, like, what's your Enneagram type? Or what's the Enneagram type of the guy you work for? Or what's the Enneagram type of the help desk guy? And they're like all 5s. Like they're just drawn to that world because IT people who are certified and skilled, degrees and certifications or certifications wherever you land, they are the people who have mastered figuring it out. Like they have mastered solving the unknown problem. These are the guys who can pull up a YouTube tutorial or a Reddit thread, read, interpret it, master it, and have that skill under their belt, and will take pride, and to the Enneagram's point, safety in that type of knowledge. And in my experience, there is some wisdom, I think, to saying most Enneagram types can be extroverted or introverted, but in my anecdotal experience, most 5s tend to really lean introverted to me.
I think it's just because they're much more, one, they tend to want to be independent and self-sufficient, but I do think part of it is that they want to conserve energy as part of that self-sufficiency. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, in an hour, in 5 minutes. I need to be prepared to be self-sufficient. Therefore, I'm going to reserve energy, be introverted, so that when something happens, I can attack it and be ready. If I have to grab a go bag and go in 5 minutes, I'm going to be ready because I'm rested.
I have butted heads with 5s before because this is a personality trait that I don't understand. And so this is a perfect example of knowing that these type of people are in the world who can aggregate and curate knowledge and understanding in such a unique way that they can get things done that I'm content to not ever know. Right? They know things that I just would never ever delve into.
I would never even think to know that I should know that.
Right. Or B, I'm willing to incrementally learn for the rest of my life that they mastered in an afternoon. And they are a gift to have on a team. These are the back of the room type people whose brains never shut off. They are always cooking. They are always subdividing and fragmenting things into pieces. I think they would make great teachers from me to you. They would perhaps make great engineers. Because they are just
great
able
engineers
to synthesize these things incredibly well. But on a team, you want 1-5 on your team. You want at least 1-5 on your team.
Oh, I definitely agree.
In your coaching business, have you had any experience with people who have tested as a 5? And what does the coaching business look like for them at all?
It's interesting because there's 1-5 that I can think of that I've worked with in the coaching realm. And a lot of what we spend our time on is the action-oriented side of things because they know their business really well. Yeah. They know their project, their task, their role. They know everything. They don't necessarily know how to motivate themselves to actually do something with that knowledge.
Because they're keeping it to themselves for safety. It's self-preservation, a lot of their knowledge acquisition.
Yep. Yeah, it's self-preservation. And they might want to start a business. They might want to progress in their career or do something bigger than what they're doing right now. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it is, I know all of this. I just don't know what to do with it. I know that I can get from point A to point B. How do I get myself to do that?
Your 5s will thrive under a supervisor who knows how to prioritize.
Yes.
A 5 on a team that has a supervisor that brings redundant clarity to the task, those 5s will answer the call to action. Yep. In the absence of that clarity, I think that 5 withdraws.
Yeah, because they don't know what the priority is. I have all of this information. Mm-hmm. I know all of these things. I know where to find this information. I can look at these reports, do whatever. I'm capable to do whatever is needed of me. I don't know what the most important step is to move my team, my career, the organization forward. And I think you're right. I think a supervisor that can call that out in them and go, hey, here's clearly the plan and the priority. They can then take the knowledge they have and operate within that plan.
Yep.
But having that strategic vision to figure out what do I do with all of this knowledge to get from point A to point B is hard. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not true for all 5s, but in my experience, like that is generally what seems to be the case because they know so much of the tactile, in-depth, but actually applying that, knowing where to start, how to prioritize and motivate. It's not that they don't know it, they just know what to do with it.
And now is a good point, now that we've talked about our first 5 types on the Enneagram, is to remind listeners and ourselves that not all 5s are the same. Some 5s can bust through that fence of application much easier than others. And there's a whole lot of variables that go into a person's personality. And of course, for the purposes of our show today, we are speaking in very general terms. We are supporting that with what we've read from Cron and Stabile, as well as the Enneagram Institute and a variety of other resources online. Like there's so much literature written on this. I'm just pointing to the sources that have been the most meaningful to me this year. But we have to be very, very mindful that the difference between an Enneagram type 5 who is a man and a woman is going to be very, very different. We've already talked about some of the generational differences among the types, and we haven't even addressed any cultural differences amongst the types. What is the difference between a white man or a black man who is a type 5? Or what is the difference between someone who lives in the West or the East who is a type 5? And this is true for all numbers. There are so many variables that go into explaining a person's personality, but the Enneagram helps draw a giant red circle around that motivation, around that true north, and it equips guys like you and I, college professors, those who work on teams, who serve others, to know where their personality sort of starts and ends with an educated guess.
Yeah.
Even if we can't relate to them perfectly or even sustain that relatability over time, we have a place to start. Which takes me to our next number, the type 6. This is the loyalist. Now, the type 5 and the type 6 in my brain require a lot of reading. These are not people that I relate to very well. And I am extroverted, and I am articulate, and I am loud, and I am flashy. So 5s and 6s probably get super annoyed with me. And I'm aware of that, and that doesn't bother me. But the type 6 is the loyalist. And the loyalist is a proper dichotomy of a person. They are either a this type, type 6, or a that type, type 6. And we'll talk about that. But the type 6 is committed. They are practical and witty. They are the worst case scenario thinkers who are motivated by fear and the need for security.
The way I like to summarize a 6 is they have thought through every possibility of every situation and know what to do, and they have a plan for how they're going to react, what is going to happen if any situation pops up. These are the people that I think of in movies, like action thriller spy movies, where the protagonist sits in a seat in a cafe facing the window and they're scoping out all the exits and know all of that, right? Like that is the personality of a 6. It's probably subconsciously, but they're running through their mind, what are the worst case scenarios?
Yep.
Even if it's the tiniest chance of something happening, what are all the possibilities that could happen in this exact moment, and how am I going to react and protect myself and those that I care about in this situation?
You want a type 6 going on your vacation with you, because that person will not forget to pack a dang thing.
They will be prepared for literally anything.
They have thought of everything. You want a type 6 in the room while you're making decisions, because they are thinking ahead of you. And I have a type 6. I actually work with 2 type 6s at work. They are both women. One of them reports directly to me, and I work alongside of another one. And so as I was reading this book, The Road Back to You, I was thinking of them. My best friend's wife is a 6. And I love to ask him questions about her because it's a personality that I struggle to relate to, not necessarily to understand. But in the moment, like if any of these women were sitting here, I struggle to put together the words and the authentic expression of self to serve them well. As we talked about already, I follow a loose set of rules. I am type A about where my stuff goes. But when I'm reading like a guidebook or terms and conditions, or if I have to sign something at the doctor's office or anywhere else, you have my guarantee that I did not read all of it. When my mail comes to the house or when bills come to the house, I don't read all that. Like I just don't care. Like the consequences be darned, because I just don't care.
Yeah.
I am fine with the consequences. I speed a little bit, and if I get pulled over, that authority. Do you know how fast you were going, Crab Clown Jimmy? Yes. I have an odometer and a master's degree, and I can read. Like I don't have the respect for authority that our 6s will.
Right.
And our 6s remind us that authority is good.
Yes.
Authority can be trusted.
Yep.
And they behave in such a way that I alluded to earlier as somewhat dichotomized. They are phobic and counterphobic. And I think Cron and Stabile really do a good job of laying this out. So our phobic 6s are always loyal to authority. This is a direct quote. These 6s seek to please and obey the rules. They are deferential to their bosses, trying their best to please because they view the authority as the source of their security. Counterphobic 6s, these people will strike if they smell a rat. These folks are wary of authority figures. They keep a weather eye on those in charge in case they try to pull the wool over someone's eye or pull a fast one. They stay anxious. And so these 2 types of personalities, again, very fear-based, but they see authority as someone to be highly respected or highly weary of. I think both of them would fall into the rule follower category.
Oh, yeah.
But for 2 very different reasons.
Very different reasons. The other thing that I think is interesting about 6s is we call them the loyalist. And I think both of the phobic and the counterphobic 6s can be viewed as a loyalist because of their relationship to authority.
Right.
Because they put such a high emphasis on authority. It takes them a lot to buy into whatever that authority is, whether it truly is authority like your local government, or it is the authority of a supervisor at work or a family member or a friend. Once they are bought in, they're the loyalist because nothing will shake that.
Right. What they're shaken by is the plausibility of what if.
Yes.
And a strong leader or a strong spousal partner or another strong figure in their life is someone toward whom they'll bend because they desperately crave that security. Our phobic 6s will scratch the itch by following the rules very, very desperately, but our counterphobic 6s are very, very fearful. And they worry about the worst case scenario. They even sometimes fantasize about it. And I think about a dear 6 friend of mine for whom this actually took place. And she is a smart person. She is a teacher. She's a wonderful mom. But one of the worst case scenario what ifs ever happened right in front of her eyes, which she just did not need because they're always worried about it. They're always worried about it. And what's true is that statistically, a lot of the things that they worry about are just not going to happen.
Yep.
But this one time it happened, and it was a freak accident. And what happened is her sweet toddler son was holding a Yeti cup and was sipping water from it. And it was cute. But he tripped and fell while holding the cup, and the straw just stabbed him in the top of the mouth. And of course, it wasn't very, very deep. It wasn't super, super traumatic, but it did bleed, and there was water, and there was blood, and it was just a chaotic moment. And for a heart like hers, for her own child, this was the worst case scenario.
Yeah, the worst case actually came true.
It actually came true. And for people like her, this can ratchet up really quickly into a near trauma level experience because their minds are already lingering so deeply in the what if category that moments like this. Now, the little boy was fine. He literally had no stitches. A mouth wound like that heals, and she knows better. She's wiser. Like, again, this isn't something that she's going to need counseling for or anything. But the point of the matter is, the worst came to happen before her very eyes. And for 6s, this is something that's incredibly meaningful.
Well, and I think in a situation like that, 6s would call back to that in the future too, right?
Right.
The
odds,
as evidence that, well, yeah, the odds might be low, but they're never zero.
Right.
This one thing happened. Therefore, there is now a heightened sense of, I have to be prepared for these small things in the future.
Right. And our unwise 6s will never let their toddlers hold a drinking cup again.
Right.
But our mature 6s will acknowledge
Healthy
it for what it
6s.
is. Yeah, our healthy ones will say it was a freak accident. Of course I have to give my child water. And maybe I just won't let them walk around as far away or something like that. But to overreact to the freak accident, I think, is going to be an indicator of a 6 under stress rather than a 6 under growth that we'll talk about in a second, as we've already alluded to. Now, perhaps the funnest type. We've got 3 left. The funnest type in the world, the enthusiast, the type 7. You're already smiling, Tyler. Tell me about the type 7.
Yeah, 7s are definitely known as the fun type. 7s are extroverted, optimistic, spontaneous, very high-spirited, and practical. They often become overextended, scattered, and undisciplined. But their whole thing, the way I like to describe 7s is they're constantly ready to have a party. And it's often because they want to avoid any fear, any pain, any anger. Everything is going to be fun. There's always something fun happening. One of the keys to knowing a 7 is if they're going through a really hard time or had a really stressful week at work, or something big happened that is just heavy, they're the ones who are most likely to say, hey, let's take a trip to my favorite city for the next weekend. Let's go to the beach tomorrow.
Right.
Let's do something so that they can avoid and kind of ignore usually that pain or frustration, anger, whatever it might be.
You've hit the nail on the head. 7s hide from pain. They hide from conflict. They hide from discomfort. They don't want an emotionally charged moment. And I read that a 7 gets the thrill more out of planning the fun thing to do than actually going to
Than actually doing the fun.
Right. A spontaneous trip to the beach tomorrow instead of going to work is 10 times more exciting than actually going to the beach and being there.
Yeah.
Like, they'll go and they'll have fun. Don't get me wrong, but like, the planning is the thrill, the hope for the next thing, the lust for the next fun moment.
And I think that's the key, is that once they're at the beach, they're looking at, well, what's the next fun thing?
What's the next fun thing?
It's not, I can't have fun right now. It's, there's sand between my toes. What's the next fun thing that is going to distract me from the sand between my toes?
I heard, this is a direct quote from a friend of mine. I'm not going to name drop his name, but if he listens, he'll know it is him. But he says, if there is joy to be found in the room, I'll find it.
Yes.
This is a guy who, when he goes into a room, people know he's there because he's there to have fun. He is there to make people smile. He is there to remind everyone that everyone is okay. And I'm not talking about like a jock at a party with a red Solo cup splashing his face with whatever's in it. I'm talking about a guy who just knows how to have fun.
Yeah.
And these are the guys that when they go to a gathering, when they go to a party or an event, they know how to get people laughing. They know how to make people feel comfortable. They know how to really seize the joy in the room. But to your earlier point, their brain has never left, what's the next fun thing I'm going to do?
Yep.
Because for them, to reuse a phrase, scratching that itch is planning that next trip. A 7 that you and I both know, we worked with her back at our last job, recently up and quit her job and moved to Korea. And she is a fan of Korea. She has visited there before. She's traveled all over the world, not her first time. But the spontaneity with which, at least to mine and your brains, with which she made that decision is like, wow, she did it.
Well, even before she moved, she would travel all the time.
She sure would.
Every time I talked to her, my question was, where's your next big trip?
Yep.
Because there was always a trip planned as soon as she got back.
She always had an answer to that.
There was always another trip on the horizon to look forward to.
And I'm a jealous type, so every time she told me that story, I would bring it back home to my wife and say, hey, so-and-so just got back from, where'd you go? San Diego. Can we go to San Diego? Can we make a trip? Because I love traveling too. And so anytime I would text her, she's a friend of ours. So I would text her and be like, again, to your point, where are you going? And she would just tell me she just got back with a whole group of people. It wasn't just her.
There was a group of 6 of them.
Yes, and I don't know if they're all 7s or if she just suckered them into the trip, but they were coming back from places like France and Korea and California and places that were uniquely scenic and uniquely fun and widely historic and just, very touristy by nature. And I'm excited for her. Like, we have texted since she's left, and we are super supportive of her, but just clapping from afar because, my kids are raised right here in South Carolina. It's different for a family of 4 to just say, you know what, let's move to Canada. That sounds fun.
Yeah. There's another small part about 7s too, that bringing joy to every situation.
Yeah.
I think one of the practical examples that I've seen for some reason multiple 7s in my life do is have those little confetti poppers in their desk. And if something happened, they get a good email.
Yep.
They open their desk drawer, pull out a confetti popper and have a 30-second party because they got good news, or they booked checkout on Delta and they're going to celebrate the fact that they just booked a flight with their friends or whatever it is.
Confetti popper in the desk is a bold move.
That's a very bold move.
But to your point, they do want to celebrate. They are fun. They will start with a laugh. They will start with a smile. The challenge for them, though, is to sometimes be real with themselves in the moment.
Yeah.
To sit in the unrest or the heavy emotion of bad news, or to look at consequences as a lesson to be learned. They struggle with things like that because they're so oriented. Their true north is the lust for adventure and the lust for joy and the lust for the feel good. Some of them will find comfort in gambling. I think our 7s are most susceptible to things like that. In darker moments, they will be gluttons for food. They will be gluttons for overspending or something like that. And they struggle to discipline themselves in the moment, to rest in those heavier feelings that my personality is more comfortable with. And instead, they will knee-jerk react a trip to wherever. And the friends that we've talked about, anecdotally here just now, don't fall into that category specifically. I'm not talking about them having gambling problems or anything like that. But for them, it could be something as small as not paying their bills on time or not cleaning their dirty car, because that is a feel bad type moment. And it can be on a wide variety of other things that they choose to avoid in light of that dark feeling. Now, let's move on to the type 8. This is the challenger. This is someone who is commanding, intense, and confrontational. They are motivated by a need to be strong and to avoid feeling weak or vulnerable. Now, I have to confess to you, there are good people in the world, Tyler, who are 8s, men and women who've changed the world for the better. These type of people scratch and claw their way to the top of Fortune 100, 200 companies. These are the CEO level minded people. They are top tier, top shelf, top title, top position people, because they will not hear no as an answer. They will not be told that they can't do it. And for people who have integrity and for people who live a life of kindness and one anotherness, they will do so in a way that is gentle and, of course, pleasing and kind and not backstabbing or not so business or profit oriented that they'll hurt people, but they'll do it in such a way that is gradual or incremental. But there are those challenger types who bend very hard towards narcissism.
Yeah.
Or they bend very hard towards tyranny or being a bully or those types of people. And again, because you and I have worked together in another life, we have stories about these people from left to right, for better and for worse.
Yep.
But I want to hear, what anecdotes do you know? Do you know any 8s? What are they like?
Yeah, I think 2 of my favorite people in the world are 8s. I think 8s have a strong propensity for justice.
Yes.
And that is why often they fight back against authority, which sometimes is viewed as a bad thing because they're fighting authority, standing up. But oftentimes those good 8s are very justice oriented. One of my really good friends started a nonprofit in Minnesota called Stories Foundation that fights human trafficking.
Wow. And
they just opened a cafe called the Storyteller Cafe. And it's all about educating, raising awareness, providing opportunities for those who have been rescued out of human trafficking to provide dignity and reintegrate back into society with jobs and all sorts of really cool stuff. But it's been almost 10 years of her fighting for that, never giving up, fighting against people who have said, this is hopeless, like, don't try. One of my other really good friends is an 8, and most people think he's just a curmudgeon and will do his own thing and fights against authority. But once you are in with him, he's extremely loyal and will do whatever he thinks is right and whatever he has to do to help you, to protect you. And often that comes across as being rude or arrogant or insensitive.
Yep.
It's just that justice-oriented heart, that justice-oriented mindset of, I don't care what authority says, this is what I'm going to do.
This is what I'm going to do. That is the wisest way to say it because they're strong-willed and they are, you use the word fighter.
Yeah.
They are fighters.
Yeah.
And they will see an uphill battle as a battle to be conquered, and they won't hear slow down. They won't hear that's a bad idea. They will hear, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah.
And where they sometimes crash with other personalities, again, they're so strong-willed, is that they will sometimes fail to acknowledge that not all peoples see and think like they see and think.
Yeah.
There are some of us who will see an uphill battle as something to strategically plan and not charge into.
Yep.
But your 8s, your challengers, your type 8s, they see that as a crest upon which to build something huge.
Yeah.
And your wealthy people in the world are generally these type of people.
Yep.
Because they just never, ever stop fighting. You can't tell them to slow down. And where they can find places for growth, and again, we'll get into that, but where they can find places for growth is to acknowledge the feelings of others. They cut right to the chase. If you're on a team with an 8 who's a challenger, they will disregard your voice, how sensitive you are, your feelings, to cut right to the chase. They are the master of the you statement.
Yeah.
And that you statement sometimes stings.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some stories we could tell that are just not fun dealing with 8s that use that you statement against you. Mm-hmm. And it's hard.
It is hard.
It makes it really hard to work with. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when we talked about some of these 8s are CEOs of Fortune 10 companies that are just in it for the money and evil, corrupt narcissists.
Sure.
Whatever word you want to put in there. Some of them are the nicest, most caring, loving people, but it all comes back to, I see something and I'm going to fight for it.
Right.
And nobody's going to tell me no. I think I really like the way that the Enneagram Institute defines an 8. One of the phrases that they use is that their basic desire is to protect themselves. They just want to be in control of their own destiny.
They never want to be seen as vulnerable.
Yes. Yes.
And it's important to say, you and I are speaking of this strong-willed nature, but what's true is that an Enneagram 8 who's fighting for the right things will have a wake of people behind them,
Yep.
charging up that mountain with them because they believe in what he's doing.
Yep.
There are great challengers in the world, type 8s, and there are going to be some who in unhealthier moments will be difficult to work with. But let's not linger here much longer. Let's talk about the type 9, who's something of the other side of that coin. The type 9 is called the peacemaker.
Peacemakers are easygoing, receptive, reassuring, complacent.
Mm-hmm.
They are all about avoiding conflict.
Right.
All they want is for everybody to get along.
Yep.
Pretend that conflict doesn't exist.
Yep.
We're not going to address it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting having peacemakers on your team.
It is, because they adopt everyone's perspective so well and so quickly.
And so happily.
They can. If we had a type 9 sitting right here with us, they would be able to articulate how we think and feel, I would argue, better than we can articulate it ourselves.
Oh, for sure. They could articulate exactly how we think and feel and have some way to translate it so that at least in the moment, we think we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Even if we're not.
Right. They do a really, really good job of adapting and articulating those personalities. But one of their weaknesses here is that they will shy away from conflict or make an active effort to make light of it so that everyone calms back down. So some personalities, we think of the challenger, the type 8, who will kick open the door and ring the bell of conflict without asking twice. The type 9 is the other side of that coin. This is a person who will reel everyone back in with kindness and good words for the sake of that safety and that self-preservation. They're very instinctual this way. They make great counselors, I think.
Yes.
Because they can put such complicated concepts into words. They can help everyone understand each other. This is a person that you want to have on a team. But one of their shortfalls is that they can start a lot of projects but not finish them.
Yeah.
They can sort of lose that focus. They can not acknowledge trauma. They cannot acknowledge stress. They cannot acknowledge bumps in the road or obstacles in life in a way that should be or that would be considered healthy. They'll make little of those things when some degree of mind and effort should be given to them.
Yeah. They're very sensitive to tension, I think.
Good word. Yeah.
In a variety of ways. When I think about some of my coaching clients, I think of those clients who want to start a business or are in the middle of starting a business, have taken a few steps and it's gotten hard and they kind of just give up.
Not want to quit.
Not because they don't want it, but because they don't know how to attack conflict or that tension in a healthy way. So they just want to ignore it. And often that means, well, I'm just going to quit striving for this business that has been a dream for forever, or striving for this promotion because somebody on my team is going for it as well. And there's going to be tension there if I get it and they don't, and I can just ignore it if I let them have it.
There is, when that tension at work starts to thicken, or I think even in their marriages or in their friendships with one another, if there is some degree of tension there, before they buckle down and fight, they will make an effort to move away from that. Or they will make an effort to not invest. Now, again, these are the people that you love to have on the team because when there is a team meeting and conflict arises, they will do a great job to reel everyone back down by adopting and articulating that perspective. What a gift that is. One that I'm very envious of. I wish I could pull people's minds out and just look at it and go, man, I wish I could understand this better. But as I've already confessed, I struggle to relate well to 5s and 6s. Just because of my high emotion, my low emotional intelligence, and just how there's always this loud static of emotion in my own heart, I struggle to see those who are a little bit more headstrong. I struggle to relate to them, rather. But your 9s close that gap on all of us.
On everybody.
Oh, so incredibly well. I'm very jealous of it.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crab Clown Podcast. I hope you found it interesting, the exploration of the 9 Enneagram types and how they can affect you and your personality in the workplace and in marriage and on teams and in a variety of other contexts. In our next podcast episode, we are going to go into the strengths and weaknesses, the healthy patterns and the stress patterns of Enneagrams, as well as the various triads and the wings, to explain in more detail elements that help us further differentiate personalities and how we can care for and love for one another better. Stick around for more good stuff, and we'll see you back next month.